Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Brad sent me a note about a story he saw in the Arizona Republic, and the headline says she was asking for help. Woman claiming wrongful arrest by Scottsdale police paid a $200,000 settlement for how they handled the woman asking for help. Woman says she was wrongfully arrested for a hit and run she did not commit, and she settled her lawsuit against the city of Scottsdale after the city council voted unanimously to settle the case and pay her $200,000. The woman had parked her car at a shopping center on May 24th, 2020 at around 8:40 in the evening, and then went inside and visited a bar, and she had a few drinks. She came back out to her car after 11 o'clock at night, and she saw that the windshield had been damaged. So she's presuming that this is some sort of vandalism. So she then flagged down a couple of nearby police officers who were riding by on bicycles. So there are some police officers on bike patrol. She waves them down and says, "Hey, somebody vandalized my vehicle." Now, unrelated to her, about 20 minutes earlier, two officers were investigating a hit and run that took place on 6th Avenue, according to the complaint that was filed in court. Body camera footage shows the woman seated on the curb of the parking lot next to her car as an officer questions her about how many alcoholic beverages she had consumed between when she first got to the parking lot to when she contacted the police about her vandalized vehicle. Footage shows the officer continuously asking about what kinds of drinks she'd consumed, how long she estimated it took her to drink them, and then finally the woman asks, "Am I being detained?" And the officer says, "Yes, you are." She says, "Well, can I get a lawyer?" And the officer says, "No, you're not entitled to one. You're under investigation." So she flagged them down, said, "There's damage to my car." And they go, "Well, you're being detained for an investigation." Her attorneys say that despite surveillance footage showing that her car was parked at the time of the hit and run, and that she was actually the victim of a property crime, she was booked on charges of drug paraphernalia, 2 counts of driving under the influence, and failure to stop at the scene of an accident causing injury or death. So, among other things, they had no evidence that she'd been driving. And likewise, no evidence that she'd failed to stop at the scene of an accident other than the fact that her car had some damage on it. But apparently there was surveillance footage showing her car parked the entire time. Although her case was eventually dismissed, her mugshot was published on the internet. And so once that's out there, it ain't never coming back. There's no reverse button on the internet. After news broke of her lawsuit against the city, the Scottsdale police chief announced the department would conduct an internal investigation into the incident. Several months later, the department determined the officers involved had violated their policies. He released a statement after the investigation's conclusion that recognized the department made mistakes. Mistakes were made when they arrested the woman seeking help, and he offered his most sincere apologies. We are not infallible, and any expectation of such is unrealistic. I remain committed to maintaining a strong culture of accountability, transparency, and professionalism, the chief's statement read. Meanwhile, the attorney representing the woman described the incident as an egregious example of police harming the very people who called them for help. She's calling for being vandalized as a victim, and then she ends up being victimized by the Scottsdale Police Department, he told the Arizona Republic. Meanwhile, he also acknowledged that police officers have difficult jobs and can make mistakes, but pointed to the sheer amount of evidence available, including surveillance footage of the parking lot showing that the car didn't leave its spot when the hit and run occurred. More than anything, he said the incident irreparably damaged his client's trust in law enforcement. One of the hardest things was, here she was asking for help, and how do you trust police anymore? How do you trust and call an officer anymore when you know that happened last time when you trusted an officer? He recommended anyone who felt their civil rights were being violated to contact a civil attorney to look into the case, as oftentimes the only way they can be compensated for any injustice they receive will be through the courts. And here's the thing. If there was a hit and run accident over here, presumably Some witnesses saw it. I mean, somebody reported it. Somebody had to say there was a hit and run. Whether it was the person who got hit or a witness or somebody said there was a hit and run accident. The question we don't know is, did they get a description of the car? And did her car fit that description? And if that actually was true, I'd go, okay, there's a little more to the story that's not in what we read in the paper. And I'm not necessarily saying that automatically means that you can arrest her because her car fit the description. Because the other problem is it says there was damage to her windshield. Now, I understand that it's possible that if the hit and run involved a pedestrian, it's possible that the car hits the pedestrian and the pedestrian flies up in the air and hits the windshield. That's possible. But if it was another car, I'm not quite sure that there'd be damage to just the windshield. That seems odd to me. So these are questions that we don't know the direct answers to. But the bigger problem you have is that apparently there's surveillance footage that they can look at. Now, it's possible that you could say, Steve, if this is late at night, and oftentimes it is when you're at a bar, that surveillance footage from a store that's closed might not be available till the next day. What do they do? Well, they've got her right there, okay? And they know who she is. They know what her car is because the car is right there. They can do all kinds of stuff and simply wait until the store opens the next morning and say, can we take a look at your surveillance footage? They don't have to arrest her now, charge her with a raft of crimes, some of which she didn't commit, based on the theory that they're hoping the surveillance camera footage is going to show them what they need to know. So again, we don't know what other information they might have had, but it does sound like they jumped the gun on that. And as the police chief himself said, mistakes were made. Mistakes were made. And that is a very serious issue. And I have heard of other people, friends of mine, and I've also seen it in the news, where somebody calls the police and the police show up and for whatever reason, they start looking at the person who called them like they're the problem. And I don't know why that would be the case, but it appears to be something that happens periodically. I don't know if once in a while a cop shows up in a bad mood and the person in front of him is not exactly making that mood any better. And so they decide to focus on them instead of what this person is trying to tell them. And I've also heard many times where people said, I called the police showed up, and they're like, they didn't even care. They didn't care. So I don't know what to say about this other than the fact that the woman goes into a bar and drinks, and then she leaves the bar. And by the way, keep in mind, some people are going to say, Steve, if she drank too much at the bar and walked out to her car and was going to drive the car, once she drove the car, she would have been breaking the law. Yeah, she would have been if she had done things that she didn't do, because that's not what happened. So we can speculate all day long about what could have happened if we invent new facts. The facts we have is that she goes into the bar and drinks. She comes outside and sees her car. And her car's been damaged in such a way that it looks like vandalism. So she waves and flags down two cops on bikes who immediately look at her as a suspect in a hit and run. And you have to also wonder, and once in a while, you got to actually start deconstructing these events a little bit. If somebody had just been involved in a hit and run, would they flag down the cops and go, hey, look at this damage to my car? But people do crazy things. So, don't know about that. But the real upshot here is that she flagged them down looking for their help, and instead they arrested her, charged her with a bunch of crimes, put her mugshot on the internet, and then once they looked at the actual evidence of what happened, they said, oh, got the wrong person. And they let her go. And of course, her mugshot's out there. It's out there. So there you go. She's asking for help. Woman claiming wrongful arrest by Scottsdale police gets a $200,000 settlement. Perry Vandell wrote that for the Arizona Republic, and Brad sent it to me. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments? Put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. If you're not lost, you're not much of an explorer.